Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide. A reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that a simple kite once helped win wars, predict the weather, and even inspired the invention of the airplane? Discover the history of kites, from military operations to the study of atmospheric weather patterns. Learn about all the kite flyers that have gone before, and then grab a kite, find an open field, start running, and hope for a good, strong breeze while you experience the fun and excitement of flying a kite.
I have to admit, when I first saw the stack of research for today, I had a bit of a flashback. I was instantly 5 years old again, standing in a park holding a plastic candle.
Oh no.
Watching a diamond-shaped piece of vinyl nosedive directly into the only tree for miles.
The universal childhood experience. The Charlie Brown special.
Exactly. The Charlie Brown experience. I think for most of us, kite just equals toy.
Yeah.
It's something you buy for $5 at a beach shop and, lose 20 minutes later. But then I started reading through this material and I realized I was completely wrong. We aren't talking about toys today. We are talking about, the precursor to the drone. We are talking about military espionage, advanced mathematics, and arguably the most important invention in the history of transportation.
It really is a case of technology just, hiding in plain sight. We dismiss the kite because it's colorful, it's whimsical, but if you peel back that layer, and that is exactly our mission today, you find this incredible lineage of engineering.
And it's a perfect day for it.
Exactly. Since today is February 8th, National Kite Flying Day, it's the perfect excuse to actually look up and understand what is happening at the end of that string.
And the winds of history, as one of our sources put it, they blow much further back than I expected. I was thinking maybe Victorian England, in the Mary Poppins era.
Not even close.
But we are going way, way back.
We're talking ancient history. The origins are a little misty, which is pretty common with technology that uses biodegradable materials like wood and paper.
Sure.
But the cultural roots are firmly planted in China, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And the sources make a distinction right off the bat that I think is crucial.
Which is?
The original kite flyers weren't doing it to relax.
Right. The why matters here. It wasn't leisure. It was survival. The section on the South Pacific really grabbed me. They weren't flying kites for fun. They were using them to fish.
Exactly. It's such a brilliant solution to a physical problem. I mean, if you were standing on the shore or in a little canoe, you can only cast a line so far. You're limited by your arm strength.
Right.
But if you attach your bait to a kite made of leaves and reeds,
you bypass the surf entirely? You can drop your line hundreds of yards out right into the deep water where the big fish are.
and you don't even need a motor.
No.
It's engineering born out of necessity. It's harnessing wind power to extend human reach. And that theme, extending our reach, that carries through the entire history.
But the example that really blew my mind, and I think we can honestly call this the first drone without being hyperbolic,
Oh, yeah.
is the story of Mozi.
The Chinese philosopher.
Yes. So we are in China around 450 BC, and this guy isn't just folding paper airplanes. The source says he spent 3 years crafting a wooden bird that could fly on a tether.
3 years.
3 years.
That detail just creates such a vivid image. Think about the patience required.
Yeah.
And just, consider the material science challenge there. This is 450 BC.
Right.
You don't have carbon fiber.
Yeah.
You don't have ripstop nylon or lightweight plastics. He is working with wood.
He would have had to shave that wood down until it was paper thin.
Yes, exactly. To engineer wood that is light enough to generate lift, but strong enough not to snap under the tension of the wind. I mean, that is a masterclass in aerodynamics before the word aerodynamics even existed.
He was solving lift-to-drag ratios by feel.
Totally.
It really changes how you view the ancient world. They weren't just stumbling around. They were conducting these long-term experiments in flight. But Mozi's bird was effectively a prototype. The moment where the kite stops being an experiment and becomes a strategic military asset. That happens a couple of centuries later, around 200 BC.
With General Han Sen. This is one of my favorite stories in military history because it just represents pure lateral thinking.
The siege warfare story. I had to read this twice to make sure I understood the math he was doing.
He is so impressive.
Yeah.
So, set the scene. The Han Dynasty. General Han Sen is outside a city he wants to conquer. It's a walled city, heavily fortified. Traditional siege tactics, battering rams, starvation, they're messy, they're slow, they cost a lot of lives. But He Sin looks at his kite And he doesn't see a toy. He sees a measuring tape.
He flew the kite over the city walls to measure the distance, right?
Yes, but think about the precision of it. He flies the kite until it is directly over, say, the palace or the city center. He marks the string at his end. He pulls it down.
And now he has a measurement.
Now, by measuring the length of that string and, doing some basic trigonometry, he knows the exact distance from his position to the target.
And he needed that specific number to dig a tunnel.
Exactly. He wasn't going over the wall, he was going under. And he needed to know exactly how long that tunnel had to be to pop his troops up right in the middle of the city.
Because if you guess wrong...
If you guess wrong, you come up short and hit a foundation, or you dig too far and miss the whole point. The kite gave him the data he needed to bypass the walls entirely.
That is wild. It's weaponized geometry. It reminds me of how we use laser rangefinders today.
That's a great analogy.
He was using wind and string to do the exact same thing.
Precisely. And that utility measurement and observation, that becomes a recurring theme. It's not about the kite itself. It's about what the kite lets you see or measure that you couldn't reach otherwise.
So as we move forward in the timeline, the kite starts to take on a different role. It moves from the battlefield to the ocean.
Right.
The source mentions Marco Polo documenting how kites were used as omens by sailors.
Right. So before a merchant ship would set sail, the crew would fly a kite. It was considered a prognostic tool.
So if the kite flies high and steady, the gods are smiling, and you set sail.
Essentially, yes. Prosperity is ahead.
Yeah.
But if the kite crashes or if it flies erratically and slams into the deck...
Bad omen.
That's a bad omen.
Yeah.
The voyage is doomed. You stay in port.
Which, if you kind of strip away the mysticism, is actually just primitive meteorology.
It really is.
I mean, if the wind is turbulent and gusty enough to crash a kite, the weather conditions probably are terrible for sailing a massive wooden ship.
That's a great connection. It's wrapped in superstition. The kite says no, but it's grounded in observing atmospheric conditions.
Yeah.
The sailors knew that the wind tells you everything. Eventually, these sailors brought the kites back from Japan and Malaysia to Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries.
But Europe didn't exactly embrace them as high-tech tools immediately, did they?
No, not at all. It was a slow burn. Initially, they were just curiosities, novelties from the East.
Right.
It wasn't until the 18th century that they really caught on as toys for children.
Mm.
But, and this is the classic pattern of innovation, just as the public starts seeing them as toys, the smartest people in the room start seeing them as instruments.
The pivot to science. This is the Enlightenment era. Everyone is obsessed with categorization, with understanding nature.
And the atmosphere was this great mystery.
A final frontier at the time.
It was. We didn't have weather balloons. We didn't have satellites or drones. If you wanted to know what the temperature was at 500 feet or what the air pressure was like, you had absolutely no way to get a thermometer up there.
Unless you had a kite.
Unless you had a kite. It became the elevator for scientific instruments.
Now, everyone knows Benjamin Franklin. The key, the thunderstorm, 1752, it's iconic imagery. But our notes point out that he was actually late to the party.
He was.
He wasn't the pioneer we think he is.
He was not. We give Franklin a lot of credit, and rightly so, for his electrical theories. But Alexander Wilson and Thomas Melville were doing weather experiments with kites in 1749.
3 years earlier.
3 years before Franklin ever flew his. They were attaching thermometers to kites to measure temperature gradients at different altitudes.
So Franklin was basically jumping on a scientific trend that was already happening.
He was part of a movement. By the late 19th century, kites were widely used for studying atmospheric conditions. I mean, before the airplane, the kite was the primary tool for atmospheric science.
And that obsession with what is happening up there, understanding lift, drag, air pressure, it leads us directly to the Holy Grail.
To the airplane.
The invention of the airplane.
You cannot have the airplane without the kite. It is structurally impossible.
I think this is the connection most people miss. We think of the Wright brothers as bicycle guys.
Right.
But the source is explicit. They were kite guys first.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at the Wright brothers' development process, they didn't just build a plane, strap an engine to it, and jump off a cliff.
That's how you die.
That's how you die. They spent years flying their designs as kites.
So a glider is just a tethered kite without the string, essentially?
In terms of the physics, yes. They built these biplane structures, which were essentially giant box kites, and flew them on tethers. This allowed them to stand safely on the ground and manipulate the controls.
Ah.
Okay, if I warp the wing this way, the kite turns left. If I warp it that way, it dives. They learned the mechanics of flight control pitch, roll, yaw, specifically through kite flying.
The kite was their wind tunnel.
It was their wind tunnel.
Yeah. Speaking of massive kites and experimentation, we have to talk about Alexander Graham Bell.
Oh.
We know him for the telephone, obviously.
Yep.
But the man was obsessed with kites. And not just little ones.
No, Bell was thinking big. He was working on the tetrahedral kite.
The visuals on this are just crazy. It looks like a honeycomb made of red silk.
It's a brilliant design. A tetrahedron is a pyramid shape with a triangular base. It's incredibly strong. So Bell realized that if you stack these cells together, you can build a structure of almost any size that is rigid but also really light.
And in 1901, he built one that could lift 288 pounds.
288 pounds.
That's not a scientific instrument. That's a large man plus gear.
Exactly. At that point, the line between kite and aircraft is completely blurred. He built a viewing platform in the middle of it.
Wow.
He was trying to solve the problem of stability. He thought the future of flight was these massive, stable, floating platforms.
The Wright brothers went for speed and instability that you could control. Bell went for rock-solid stability.
The Wright brothers won that argument, obviously.
Clearly.
But it shows how powerful the technology was, and that power, well, inevitably it attracts the military again.
The cycle continues. We used kites for war in 200 BC, and we used them for war in the 20th century.
Yep.
This really surprised me. You'd think by World War I, with biplanes and zeppelins, the kite would be obsolete. But the source says the British, French, Italian, and Russian armies all had dedicated kite units.
They did. And these weren't for fun. This was high-stakes observation. We're back to the man-lifter concept. They would string together a train of powerful box kites, sometimes 5 or 6 of them.
A train of them.
Yeah, and suspend a basket underneath. A soldier would strap in, and they would winch him up hundreds of feet into the air to spy on enemy trenches.
Just picture that for a second. You were dangling in a basket, suspended by fabric and string, 500 feet above a battlefield.
Terrifying.
You are the definition of a sitting duck.
It was incredibly dangerous. You're a stationary target. If the wind dies, you drop. If the cable is shot, you drop. But the intelligence was so valuable, seeing where the artillery was, seeing troop movements, that they took the risk.
It was the best way to see over the hill.
Before reliable airplanes, yeah.
And even into World War II, the U.S. Navy was still finding uses for them.
The technology shifted, but the utility remained. One was target practice. They would fly these erratic, fast-moving kites from ships so that anti-aircraft gunners could practice tracking a moving target.
Which makes sense. It's cheaper than a drone.
Much cheaper. They also use them as barrage kites. You fly a bunch of kites with steel cables over a ship or a convoy.
Creating a net in the sky.
Yeah, exactly. It creates a net. If an enemy dive bomber tries to swoop down, they risk shearing their wing off on the cable.
Low-tech defense against high-tech planes. But the most famous WWII kite has to be the Gibson Girl.
The lifesaver, yes.
Yes.
This was standard issue in emergency wraps for pilots. If you went down in the Pacific, you had this yellow box kite.
Why Gibson Girl?
It had an hourglass shape, like the famous drawings from the era. But the engineering was brilliant. You assemble it, fly it up, and the string serves as a radio antenna.
Ah.
It allowed the distress signal to travel significantly further than a handheld radio ever could.
It's that height advantage again. Getting the antenna up 300 feet makes a huge difference in range.
A massive difference. It saved countless lives. It's a perfect example of how a simple, robust mechanical solution, a kite, is sometimes better than complex electronics when things go wrong in the middle of the ocean.
So the war ends. We enter the jet age. Satellites go up. You would think, okay, finally the kite is done. It can retire to the toy shelf.
But it doesn't.
It reinvents itself again.
It enters the stunt era.
Yeah.
And this is a pivotal moment in the 1970s. Up until this point, for thousands of years, a kite was a static object. You launch it, you tie it to a fence post, and you look at it.
It just drifts.
It drifts, passive entertainment, and you're just holding on.
Right.
But in 1972, a guy named Peter Powell introduces the dual-line kite. And the physics here are simple but transformative.
Instead of one string, you have two, one in each hand.
Right. And think about the aerodynamics. If you pull the left line, you're slightly warping the left side of the kite, increasing drag on that side. The kite pivots and dives left.
Pull the right, it dives right.
Pull the right, it dives right. Suddenly, you aren't just watching, you are piloting.
That's the shift. It becomes a sport. You can do loops, figure eights, precise dives.
And because you need the kite to react fast, you need better materials. This is where the aerospace tech comes back in. We stop using wood and paper.
We start using carbon fiber tubes.
We use ripstop nylon.
The same stuff parachutes and stealth bombers are made of?
Exactly. Light, incredibly stiff, incredibly strong. This allows the kites to fly faster and generate way more power. And that power generation is what leads to the extreme sports we see today.
Traction sports.
Yes. If a kite can pull a 200-pound man up in a basket in WWI, a modern, highly efficient foil kite can certainly pull a person on a surfboard.
Kite surfing.
It's the ultimate evolution. You're harnessing the wind to skim across the water, jumping 30, 40 feet in the air. It's a direct line from General Han Chin measuring that wall.
Yeah.
We're still using the wind. We're just using it for adrenaline now instead of warfare.
It is a wild trajectory. From wooden birds to carbon fiber surfing. So, bringing it back to today, February 8th, National Kite Flying Day. We've geeked out on the history and the physics, but our source material actually pivots at the end to something very practical.
Yeah.
It tells us how to actually celebrate.
And I really appreciate the advice here because it's surprisingly low-tech. It doesn't tell you to go buy a $500 pro kite.
No, the first suggestion is a DIY party.
Which brings us right back to Mozi. The suggestion is to gather raw materials. Wooden sticks, glue, tape, string.
Use newspaper, plastic bags, fabric scraps.
And glitter and ribbons are encouraged.
Highly encouraged. But there is a real pedagogical value here. When you build a kite from scratch, you have to understand the balance, you have to find the center of gravity, you have to attach the bridle string at the exact right point, or it will just spin in circles.
It's a physics lesson disguised as crafts.
It is. And the satisfaction of seeing something fly that you glued together on your kitchen table.
Nothing like it.
That's a unique feeling. It connects you to that history of innovation we just talked about. You are solving the same problems Alexander Graham Bell was solving. Now, the source also accounts for the fact that it is February, the weather might be terrible. If you can't go outside, what's the backup plan?
Pop culture, specifically Mary Poppins.
Let's go fly a kite.
You can't talk about kites without that song.
Right.
But structurally, in the movie, that scene is really important. The father, Mr. Banks, has been this rigid, serious, earthbound character.
Right.
At the end, he fixes the kite. He goes to the park. The act of flying the kite repairs the family bond.
It's communal. You can't fly a kite while looking at your iPhone. You have to be present.
That's the key philosophical angle the source touches on. It says flying a kite forces us to look up and see the beauty of the sky. And that is more relevant now than ever.
We are a heads-down society.
We are. We look at screens. We look at the pavement. Our posture is hunched. Flying a kite is a physical antidote to that. You have to open your chest, tilt your head back, and look at the horizon. You have to pay attention to the invisible, the wind.
The source actually quotes a song called Beauty Everywhere. It's a primary song, and the lyrics are really sweet. It talks about gentle breeze, loving hearts.
And seeing the work of God in the sky and land. It's about gratitude. It's about slowing down enough to notice the environment. A kite won't fly if you force it.
Right.
You can't run around frantically and expect it to work. You have to find the flow of the wind and work with it. It's almost a meditative practice.
I like that. It's a collaboration with nature.
It is. And for the listener, whether you are building a high-tech stunt kite or just taping some newspaper to a couple of sticks, the experience is the same. You are holding a string that connects you to the sky.
So let's recap this mission. We've covered a lot of altitude today.
We certainly have. We started in ancient China with Mo Tse and his 3-year wooden bird project.
We saw General Han Xin use a kite as a geometry tool to tunnel under a city.
We tracked the shift from mystical omens to hard science with the weather pioneers like Wilson and Franklin.
We watched the kite teach the Wright brothers how to warp wings and control flight.
We saw it serve on the front lines, lifting soldiers in WWI and saving pilots with the Gibson Girl in WWII.
And finally, we landed in the modern era of extreme sports and carbon fiber.
It is a remarkable evolution for something that is fundamentally just a frame and a sheet of material.
It really puts the toy label in perspective. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what is the big takeaway for you? What should the listener be thinking about as they hopefully head out to find some wind today?
Looking at this timeline, I'm struck by a pattern. The kite was often dismissed. It was seen as a child's plaything right before it unlocked a massive breakthrough. It was a toy right before it helped us map electricity. It was a hobby right before it unlocked human flight.
That's a powerful thought. Innovation hides in the unserious.
Exactly. So my question for the listener is this. What are the toys or hobbies of our current generation, the things we dismiss as just games or a waste of time, that might actually hold the key to the next great leap in technology?
Is it video games? Is it VR? Is it people tinkering with 3D printers in their garages?
History suggests the next big thing is probably hiding in a toy box somewhere right now.
I love that. History rewards the curious. Well, on that note, I think I'm going to go see if I can find some sticks and string. Thank you all for joining us on this deep dive into the surprising world of kites.
Keep looking up.
Thank you for joining us for this day in his story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in his story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.